What's going on, friends? It's Flake. It is November 15th, and I'm recording this just after 3:20 p.m. on the eastern side of North America. It's good to have you. So I didn't know what kind of video to make. I played some Gwent this morning and had a time, I suppose. I played some hand buff and ran into all the typical nonsense, the mages, lots of monster frost stuff, which is actually pretty cool. I was actually quite enjoying to see a little bit of that diversity. Now, this video here is mainly because I didn't have gameplay video to show you. I didn't have a deck tech to kind of slam in there. But what I wanted to just talk about is something that's been kind of a little bit up in my kitchen, as it were, kind of leaving the lights on in the attic for a little while here over the past. I don't want to say 24 hours, but at least 20 some odd hours. Is yesterday I played in a Pro Quest tour, as it were. Oh, sorry, I just turned my phone. If any of you have Samsung phones and you have something called Bixby, basically delete it and throw it out the window because it is the worst thing ever. Anyways, my phone was acting up. Anyways, so I was in a tournament this weekend. I'd qualified for the Flesh and Blood Nationals, the Canadian National Championships, and I flamed out in round one in the first day and didn't make it to day two. But in day two, they had what was called the Pro Quest, which is essentially you play in a massive tournament, and the winner gets a Pro Tour invite, which is cool. And with it comes some prizes and such. And I said, you know what, I might as well throw my hat in the ring, just for fun, see how it goes. And I won my first game, and I won my second game, and I won my third game. I lost my fourth game, but I won my fifth game, and I had basically secured myself into the top 8. This is the first top 8 that I ever played in. It's the first major tournament that I ever had success in. When I say major sanctioned tournament. I've played in other tournaments. A couple of weeks ago, I won a $1,000 tournament for Flesh and Blood, which was pretty cool. I went 8-0, and it was an awesome feeling, but this was a whole different ball game because this was a big sanctioned kind of tournament to that regard, and I was very happy with that whole song and dance. And the whole point of this video is kind of to discuss the reason why I don't necessarily play competitively in various card games, and the aftermath of what it was. Because I got to top 8, I snuck in at number 8, and I played against a player who was a very, very good player, an exceptional player, someone by the name of David Rude. And this player apparently had quite the pedigree of competitive card games that are beneath them. And they had beat me the day before in the championships. And today, or yesterday, or that particular day rather, yesterday, was a match, and he played exceptionally. However, and this is no slight to them, but I made a significant mistake. I had lethal, and I missed it. I just punted it, and it kind of haunted me. And that's fine, because I had never been to a top 8, and he played so damn well, and never panicked, never flinched, despite the fact that I was breathing down his neck the entire game. And he won again, and he won the whole thing. So big props to D. Rude. But the whole point of this is the fact that why don't I play competitively, and why does it bother me? Well, because the overarching thing here is that it has been almost 24 hours since that loss, and it's still kind of it followed me home, came to bed with me, and it smacked me in the face when I woke up in the morning. And that is something that I've never experienced, because I've never had this kind of success that was bookended kind of by a failure. So it was a new experience for me that I never, the stresses of playing in these tournaments has always kept me away from them. And you know me, because I think I've been invited to several tournaments in Gwent and Magic and all kind, and Storybook Brawl. I've been invited to these kinds of things, and I always decline more often than not, because it does not interest me. The stress doesn't interest me. Unless I'm paid, I guess, because it's part of my job as a sort of content creator. I mean, if it's a paid entry or a paid representation, that's a whole different ballgame. Anyway, that is to say, I don't play in these things, and I always decline because the stress is not worth it for me. The experience is not worth it for me when weighed against the mental kind of anguish. Because I play to win, I do. And I don't like the fact that I have to put myself into a position to be under a microscope, to be scrutinized, and to be when I really that is not what I want. And it's a tough thing to digest, and it really puts them into focus the way that these other competitive players have to deal with. Because I dipped my toe into competition for Flesh and Blood, and I really had no idea about what can kind of lurk behind the shadows of a loss. Because don't get me wrong, if you win, you feel freaking amazing. There was no bigger high that I have felt in a long time since I went when they posted the results of the top 8 and my name was on that list. That was something I had never experienced. It was something I never thought I would experience, and I did, and it was great. It was absolutely great. But why will I never really seek, why will I never play in a Gwent tournament? Because it's not worth it. At least not for me. And I do have the luxury of being able to fall back on the fact that I have I can say it, a successful broadcasting career in esports from the card game genre. I have worked hard to achieve this, and I don't think that it's worth the mental strain to work hard to achieve, card game success from a competition standpoint. It's not easy. I will say that. It is absolutely not easy to sit there and grind a whole day of cards, going across your opponent and, the startups, the this, the that, the introductions. Like, meeting the people was the best part of it. But every time that you drew your hand and played your turn, you were under an immense amount of pressure and scrutiny from your own self, that if you make a mistake, you will get punished. These were every time you win. For those who do not know, the more you win in a tournament, the more difficult your opponents become, until the tournament begins and everyone starts with a clean slate of 0-0. But when you win, you play another 1-0. If you win, you play against the other 2-0s. If you win, you keep winning and winning and winning. Eventually, you'll play people who are basically in your bracket, or in your kind of your. It's kind of like an MMR, but it's not anyway. I will always be a broadcaster over a competitive player, but I did enjoy it, and I have to give kudos to people like Admirable and people like Charmer and people like Blevins and people like Austin Yost and some friends of mine within my group, people like Martin Ho and my buddy Will, and a lot of players that I kind of played with and practiced with and discussed the game with, who were able to kind of push me off of or keep me from falling off a ledge. People like Majin Bay and Guardia and BZ. These are random shoutouts. You might not know these people, but they're very important people to me. Anyway, that said, Matthew Folks as well was very kind and really sent me some kind words and whatever. Anyway, long story short, it's tough. And I think that if you're out there and you're kind of having these anxieties, these haunting feelings, is that it's natural. It's definitely natural. But it will follow you home. I will always be a broadcaster over a competitor. I don't think that will ever change. I don't think I'm ever going to walk away from the fact that I just enjoy this too much to give it up and compete. I'm saying this like it's so weird, because I'm saying this, it's like, hey, champ, you just won the World Series. Are you going to join the broadcast booth? No, like, I'm not a champion in any way, shape, or form. That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is I've kind of dipped my toe in the competitive field and played in a very tough pool of players and had success. And I want to go back and I want to try it, but it was so taxing on me, and the mental strain of the aftermath of losing in a boneheaded way was essentially not worth it. And to each their own. And this is me saying I have a newfound respect for those who grind this way, who play in those big tournaments, who travel out there to grind for 10 hours in a tournament and then get so close and then falter or this or that. And how many matches have I broadcast? How many matches have I called where there has been a misplay, a misclick, a miscalculation that has been so taxing and so punishing for the player that costs them not just a win, but potentially, thousands of dollars, an invite to a bigger tournament, things of that nature. I will say that the people who won the tournament that I lost in the top 8, the people who won that tournament, I know them. I've played with them. I've played against them. I've been around them. They're great people, and they deserve it. And some of them I have beaten in the past, which is quite fascinating to me because I was going through the gauntlet of these great players, and eventually you get your pairings and you see, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm playing against, a player that you may have seen in the past or you've played before. I'm like, oh, I'm playing against Raymond Chow. Real name. That's a shout out to my buddy Raymond. And you say something along the lines of like, this is somebody who has dumpstered me in the past. I have beaten them soundly in the past, but no matter what happens between that particular matchup, you're going to be happy with the result because either you're winning or they're winning, and either way, someone that you like is going to win. But yeah, major kudos to all those players out there who play competitively because it's not easy. It's absolutely not easy, and it is what it is. This is meant to be a Gwent video, so we can talk about Gwent a little bit. Mages. We'll say it's a Gwent video because I have been, I have cast so much Gwent competitively that I have spoken to these players. I have interviews with these players prior to their major tournaments, and I see the stress in their eyes when they make it. The relief that you see when they win their quarterfinal match and have to play on day 2, that relief is short-lived. It is a relief that is basically within a framework of extra stress and more work and more grind because it's only going to get harder and they're only closer to greater disappointment. Because at the end of the day, think about it this way. The further you go, the greater the disappointment is unless you win. And it's not easy because you get to the top 8 and only one of you is going to come away and everyone else is going to possibly feel like garbage. I feel that way now. It's not a feeling of garbage. It's a feeling of saying, I can't believe I missed that. But you learn. And that's the plan. Is you learn, you improve, and I reached a new peak in my CCG career that some out there may say is pathetic and hardly an achievement. But there are some out there, like myself, who are proud of me. So, for all of you out there, I will always be a broadcaster ahead of a competitor, but I'm glad that I have this one under my belt, and these are demons that I have not faced ever. That kind of regret, that kind of looming self-doubt, but those demons are getting hunted down by motivation, by confidence, and by good support from my friends. That's my video today. Don't know what else I can give you. Either way, friends, be kind to one another. Don't forget you're not losing if you're learning, so shuffle up the cards and play because you might win. And I'll catch you soon. You can catch me twitch.tv/watchflake or on Twitter @watchflake. And hey, follow my podcasts and stuff. Why not? Go to, just look up Flake Miri is my Gwent podcast. I do it with Shin Miri. It's on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and my Flesh and Blood podcast. For those of you who are interested in the game, because that is a massive, massive part of my life now. And that is available also on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I love you all. Adios.